Hey everyone, this is Darren with Crazy Minnow Studio. Welcome back to the 8th video in the new SALSA LipSync Suite version 2 tutorial series. Okay, we're picking up from where we left off last time, so let me go ahead and get this configured. Audio source in there. All right, and let's just test real quick.
SALSA. Simple, automated
All
lip
right,
sync
everything looks like it's working. Okay, so we just released SALSA 2.1.2, and let me go ahead and upgrade us to that. All right. The main reason I wanted to do that is because there is a new feature in the new release that affects this EmoteR link here. And basically what that is previously, if you had multiple emoters attached, you would not see this drop-down box unless you did not have an EmoteR linked. So you had to be basically like this, and then you could select which EmoteR you wanted. Let me go ahead and name this EmoteR that we want. So we'll call this the one-click EmoteR. And now we can see the difference between those two. All right. So what this new version does is once we select one here, we still get the option to go and select a different one. Whereas before you had to unlink this and then you could select. So it's a little bit of a usability enhancement. Okay, so let's get into this. We're going to discuss the SALSA EmoteR link here. And basically what this does, it provides audio cued triggering of emphasis emotes, sort of what the name says. And basically what that means is that when SALSA detects that an audio cue has been triggered based on this particular trigger value here, which is a SALSA variable, then it will communicate with the linked EmoteR and tell it that it needs to go ahead and trigger an emphasis emote. Now this second value here, this emphasis chance, this is actually an EmoteR variable, and it's just presented here in SALSA as a helper. If we come down to the settings for EmoteR, then we do see that we have SALSA link settings, and the reason we have those is because we have a linked EmoteR. And if I unlink, this will all fold up and we'll see the settings go away down here. So we no longer have SALSA link settings. Let me go ahead and grab that EmoteR again. And now we do have the SALSA link settings. And we can see that these values are tied together because this is an EmoteR value and this is just a helper up here. Okay, so what is all of this and how does it work? As I mentioned, we basically are linking to an EmoteR that's already configured. And just to make sure we don't have any issues when I run this, I'm going to go ahead and remove this one I added down here. Once SALSA determines that we have exceeded the threshold to fire an emphasis emote, it will go ahead and communicate, and EmoteR will then fire one of its configured emotes, and we can look and see which emotes are configured as a group by clicking on this collection display mode, and then we see that all of the emotes we have configured here, these are all of the emotes, are enabled for emphasis. We can also look at the individual emote and we can see that value right here. So in our memberships, we are a lip sync emphasizer. Okay. So it fires off these emphasis emotes. And what does that do? While your character model is speaking, it will emphasize as the audio energy is analyzed. So how does all of this work? Well, once we've linked up an EmoteR, SALSA can then communicate with it once it exceeds the trigger value that is set here on this option. And this basically just adds another trigger for SALSA to look at when it is computing the audio analysis. So if you remember a few videos ago, we discussed the audio analysis, and let me go ahead and start this. And we can see the analysis value here. And this is what SALSA is computing based on the audio that is provided to it. So once this value exceeds the trigger threshold here, this is when it will communicate with EmoteR. And it will send over the value that it has exceeded this trigger by. So let's see. Let me go ahead and... Okay, here we go. Finally, we hit one. The analysis value was 0.54 here, and our trigger value is 0.2. So we've exceeded it by 0.34. So SALSA will send that fractional value over to EmoteR, and EmoteR will use that to calculate two things. First off, it looks at the emphasis chance that is configured, which is 75%, and then it computes an additional chance based on how much it has exceeded this trigger value. So even if you set this chance down to, say, 0, if your analysis value reached 1, let's say, then you'd have a 100% chance of triggering that. And basically, the theory behind that is the higher the energy, the more we want to have an emphasis emote be triggered, okay? So that's the first effect. It increases this emphasis chance. The second effect is the amount that it exceeds the trigger by, scaled linearly along this range from 0.2 to 1. It will compute that value, and it will apply that. Let me minimize this here. It will apply that to our emote. So let's say this was the emote that we were going to trigger. I'm going to go ahead and stop this and redo that. This is the emote we were going to trigger. So if we preview this emote, we can see that it has opened our eyes, and it basically has this one blend shape. And this is the setting. It's 0.6. This is the full extent of the emote. Now what happens is that value that's passed over, which is in this case, well, I don't know, what was it, 0.54? So 0.34 is then computed linearly, scaled along that 0.2 to 1 range, and it applies to this value. So this value basically will scale up and down based on the analysis value and how much it exceeds that emphasis trigger. So if it's a low energy, then it will be down in this 0 area. If it's a high energy, it'll be up next to the 1. So you'll see it scale up and down along this smoothly. Now, originally, we thought that it would be good to have this set fairly high because we only wanted to see emphasis if the energy was really high. But what that created was a very static and stale character down at this level. And then all of a sudden, once it got high, then it would trigger the emotes, which was okay. But we discovered that it looked much better if it were down here in the 0.1 to 0.2 range. And then we had our emotes firing more frequently at lower levels for low energy. And as the energy got higher, they would automatically get higher. And it just looked natural. The face was moving constantly, which a face does when you're speaking. And as you get more animated, then the character gets more animated. So that was the theory behind that. It looks really nice. And then we've just set it down here at 0.75 just so that, it doesn't always trigger. There may be a chance that it's not going to trigger, but it will send this over when it communicates with EmoteR, and EmoteR will randomly pick one of these values. And so if you don't want all of these to be selected on this one click, then just remove them. Or, you can remove the emote, or you can actually just remove them from the pool. And you don't have to add them to another pool. They don't have to be a part of the pool, of any pool. And we'll go into that more when we cover our EmoteR module. Anyway, I think that pretty much covers what this whole link between SALSA and EmoteR is about. And hope you enjoyed that video, and we look forward to seeing you in the next. Thanks for watching.